Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. Before I get into today's video, I want to thank everyone who participated and left comments on Wednesday's video, because it was the most suggestions I've had for altering and improving a build on any video I've done to date. And that's absolutely amazing. I really like that. It gives me lots of material for, well, in particular, this video, because I am going to try and get to as many of them as possible and a few others that I thought of myself. So this is the polyester wool that I used in Wednesday's video, and as you can see, depending on how tight or loose I make it, you get more or less bubbles, and to a small extent you also alter the size of the bubbles. So I'm going to try, like I said, as many of those materials as I can, and some of them are really difficult to drill through. So this is crinoline, and definitely is something that is very difficult to put a hole in. So I am going to clamp between two pieces of wood and a pair of vice grips, take it to the drill press, the milling machine, and drill through all of it. That way I get a nice hole, and you're going to see this a lot because, like I said, a lot of those materials are very difficult to put a hole in. At least a nice round one anyway. So here you go, get that off of there, and a nice hole, and I'm going to clamp this in the threaded part, male and female, and trim off the excess, and we're going to try this out. So this is going to, like I said, going to show up quite a bit. A lot of the materials are a little bit thicker than this, but it's, again, just simpler just to do this and try to keep it relatively uniform. So all the holes are going to be the same size this way, and trying to keep all the conditions as close as possible. So crinoline has a very tight weave, and I thought it would probably be a reasonably good thing for this, but because a weave has, fibers going in one direction and then fibers going perpendicular, apparently it does not allow enough of the air to flow through it. So this is definitely a downgrade from the others, but we'll keep going through the materials. This is another one. This is just a scouring pad. If you remember, I used it for the dollar store build, and it's compressible. So I was thinking compressible is a good thing because there's an awful lot of fibers there, and you can see they're not in any particular direction. That's kind of just a random weave almost. So I'm going to squish this in here and give this a try. It's actually not bad, but as you see here, the bubbles are quite large. So I suspect even as tight as I can make this, it's not going to reduce the size of the bubbles. Now, I was thinking about, when I was starting to put this video together, I was thinking what I could do is put together one made out of brass, out of hex rod, and that way I can really tighten down on it. But unfortunately, I did not have the time for that. If that is something you're interested in, definitely leave comments below. This is a piece of plastic. It was actually one of the comments I got, and I wanted to try it out. And see, the problem with this particular setup is that was Delrin I was machining, so it's not perfectly square and true, so there is leakage around it simply from the irregularities in the plastic. So this is going to let air through. Again, you can see that it is nothing really special. It's when you tighten it down a lot, there's hardly anything coming through at all. And you're going to see that particular pattern where there's one on one side and one on the other quite often because of that little bit of irregularity in the build itself. So this is just cotton. This is just from a t-shirt we're going to use as rags. And again, it's a weave. So I wasn't really expecting much from this. I wanted to try it out, of course, simply because it was something I had. But the crinoline, if this is same as that, it should not really do much in the way of, yeah, there you go. It doesn't really alter, it doesn't give you small bubbles. So I'm thinking the things that will work the most at this point would be the ones with random weaves, like the scouring pad and the polyester, and not so much things like this. But there's a lot of material still to go through here, so we'll still keep going through them and see what we can get. This, believe it or not, is a piece of balsa wood from a build I had done a long time ago and this is from an actual commercial airstone, a wooden airstone. So this should have good porosity, and I have used those airstones. They do work fine. But as you can see, it doesn't really give you small bubbles. It's supposed to, in the actual thing itself, give very fine bubbles. I never found it did. It was maybe just a bad batch I got. But I'm going to try a much thinner piece here. Exact same thing, just cut much thinner, and see if that's going to do anything different. It bubbles nicely. The bubbles are of reasonable size if you don't mind them being a bit too large. As far as I'm concerned, it's fine. It's not an improvement in any way, shape, or form from the polyester, but it's something. And as you see, I tightened it down, but it's wood, so you can't really compress it. If I had, of course, made the brass one, I suppose I might be able to get down a little harder. Now this is hardwood. This is some apple I had in the shop, and I have the two different sizes here, and I'm going to do the same thing with this. And it is not really porous. It's not letting any air through, really. It is just the irregularities in the actual Delrin itself that's allowing air through this. So as you can see, it's two paths of bubbles, one on either side. So it's not the thing itself. Someone suggested I try a thin sheet of acrylic, and I suspect this is going to be a lot like the wood, because again, it's only the irregularities in the Delrin that's making this produce any bubbles at all. I suspect, and depending again on comments, I might give making the brass one a bit of time if I have of course, the time to do it, and we'll see how that does. It may actually just completely cut off those. Now this is, as it turns out, the best of all of them. So that's the polyester that I was using, and as you see, it's getting a little worn from being pulled out and put back in. The other pad I'm going to use is a polyester, and it is a random weave, but it's a denser weave. You can see it's much more compact, and I just had a small piece of this, so I wanted to try it out. I am going to have to try, I think, and find more of it, because that is actually nice, fine, random bubbles all the way around, and I actually really like that. This is good. This is probably as fine a bubbles I would even want. Now I know you can get some micro bubbles and a lot of like CO2 units to use that sort of stuff, but for just having aeration in an aquarium or just causing some extra turnover, this is perfect. This is not going to disturb the fish a whole lot, and as you can see, as I tighten it down and loosen it up, it does alter the number and amount of bubbles, but again, not so much the size. The brass one, again, might make a bit of a difference. We'll see. So these are all the materials I used. Quite a few of them. Cloth, crinoline, the polyester pads, scouring pad, plastic, apple wood, balsa wood, and acrylic. So it's pretty much all I had on hand, except I got one more thing. I pulled this out of a filter. This is sintered glass. And my initial attempt was to machine this so it was a friction fit. As you can see, they just when I tried to force them in, they just splintered. So I've undersized them, and I'm going to attach them with epoxy. This is the only one that's been done this way, of course, so it does kind of mess up with the continuity here. But then again, there's just no way I was going to be able to get the sintered glass to fit in the system I already had made. So I suppose if I could find ceramic discs, I will try that, but I didn't have any on hand for this. So that is the one material besides rock wool that I haven't been able to test out. But I'll look around for them. We'll see how that goes as far as finding the materials. Rock wool should be easy, but the ceramic, hard to say. So I'm going to put this in here, and because this is all sealed, something different happened. I'm using airline from my shop, like the fish room, which goes to all my aquariums, all 30 some odd of them, because I'm creating a not path of like a high path of resistance, not the least path of resistance. They just simply don't want to go through it. So I pulled out a air pump, and I'm just using it now dedicated, and you can see that it does produce very, very fine bubbles. Not very many of them, but nowhere near enough, and also creates an awful lot of backup pressure. And this is my favorite one so far, and I'm going to do the same thing with a dedicated pump, and you can see it produces an awful lot more, and this is definitely much better. So yeah, leave the comments, let me know what you think about all this, and I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.